The man accidentally enlarged her melon and she turned bright red. Kian Harris, a young commander of the Human Alliance Armed Forces, always took pride in his role representing humanity in important missions. Despite being ambitious and talented, Kian couldn't shake the feeling of insecurity when thinking about humanity's place in the vast universe. Tasked with going to the Vesta 7 research station, a remote outpost in a star system located in the Milky Way, he saw this not only as an excellent opportunity, but also as a great challenge to strengthen diplomatic relations between humanity and other civilizations in the universe. Vesta 7 was a state-of-the-art research station designed to monitor physical and biological phenomena beyond the universe that humans had yet to understand. Situated thousands of light years from Earth, it was a place filled with advanced research equipment and delicate diplomatic relations between various species. The station members were representatives from many different civilizations, each with incredibly rich biological, cultural, and traditional traits. Although it was an ideal place for experiments and advanced research, life there was not always smooth. Every civilization had its own disputes and disagreements, especially with the Earth staff being the newcomers in a vast cosmic community. However, Kian didn't dwell too much on the underlying tensions between species in space. He only needed to focus on his mission, maintaining stability and representing humanity in scientific experiments. One of the important colleagues Kian would meet there was Aira Solis, an alien biologist from the Saphiri race. Aira, with her translucent skin and emerald green glow, was an elegant woman whose beauty wasn't just in her appearance, but also in her profound intellect and passion for research. Aira's silver-white hair cascaded gently over her shoulders, and her blue gemstone-like eyes always reflected creativity and determination in every task she undertook. Aira was the head of xenobiology research at the Vesta 7 station. She was always calm and professional in her work, but couldn't hide her passion for new discoveries about different species and alien life forms. She invited Kian to her laboratory to assist with testing a new research device she had received from the Galactic Council. The device, despite its modern design and groundbreaking capabilities, lacked clear instructions, making it difficult for both Aira and Kian to figure out how to use it. Aira explained that this device was designed to temporarily alter cellular structures for medical and scientific research purposes across the universe. While it appeared simple, the device lacked detailed instructions, and the two of them had to work together to connect it to the lab's computer system for testing and further study. Kian, who had a sharp intellect, felt excited to be involved in such a breakthrough scientific project. When Aira asked Kian to hold the device steady while she connected it to the system, an unexpected event occurred. As Aira adjusted the device, Kian accidentally pressed a small button. A beam of green light shot out from the device and struck Aira. Both of them had no time to understand what was happening. In an instant, Aira felt a dramatic change in her body. She froze, hurriedly grasping at her lab coat as the upper part of her body, particularly her chest, began to expand at a rapid pace. Her lab coat stretched tight, the seams pulling apart as she could only look at Kian with a panicked expression. Kian stood there, completely stunned, trying to figure out how to explain and fix the situation, but not knowing what to do. All he could manage was to stammer, I think I activated the cellular alteration function." Aira, now unable to control the changes happening to her body, could only look at Kian with a mixture of embarrassment and panic. Both of them stood frozen, facing the unexpected situation, while Kian could only sigh and blame himself for the accident. Kian felt confused as he looked at the device in his hand. It was a strange tool with unlabeled buttons and a small screen displaying symbols he couldn't understand. "Aira, I just wanted to help," Kian said, his voice tinged with awkwardness. Aira, standing before him, couldn't help but look down at her body as she felt the changes taking place. She could feel an unfamiliar surge of energy running through her, and then, to her disbelief, her lab coat began to stretch. She raised her hands to cover herself, but nothing could stop the embarrassing transformation happening. Her face flushed red, not from anger, but from confusion and panic. "Oh my God," Aira gasped, her hands trembling as she looked down at her body. What is happening?" Kian stood still, completely at a loss for what to do. He looked at the device in his hands, desperately searching for a revert button or some way to restore things to how they were. I think I activated the cellular alteration function, he said, his voice filled with regret. Aira turned to look at Kian, her eyes wide, but then she felt the embarrassment rising within her, making her face turn even redder. I can't believe this, she said, her voice breaking. What have you done, Kian? I don't know. I really don't know, Kian stammered. He felt like he not only caused Aira trouble, but had also ruined the entire work situation. He quickly stepped closer, his hands shaking as he tried to help her adjust her outfit. What do we do now, Aira? How do we fix this? Aira tried to stay calm, but her body was no longer listening to her commands. She felt a rush of embarrassment, confusion, and self-consciousness flood over her. Her already curvaceous body now seemed to expand even more, and her lab coat, which wasn't too loose, was stretched to the point that it seemed like it might tear at any moment. She looked at herself in the mirror, then turned to Kian, her eyes flashing with anger. Thanks, Kian, she said, her voice strained as though fighting to keep her composure. How do I look now? Kian felt a wave of shame wash over him. He just wanted to help, but now all he could do was stand there, looking awkward and helpless. I can't fix this right away, but there must be a way. Let me check the device again. Aira moved closer to a desk, trying to adjust her posture as she realized that moving around had become more difficult. Please, Kian, she said, her voice still tense. I can't just stand here all day. Do something. Kian rummaged through the buttons on the device, and suddenly he realized that it wasn't just the physical change he was noticing, but a strange shift in his own feelings. He could distinctly sense Aira's confusion and embarrassment, as if her emotions were being transmitted directly to him. He looked at her, then down at his hands, trying to shake off this strange feeling. This isn't just a physical change, Kian exclaimed. Aira, I can feel what you're feeling, like I'm experiencing it myself. How is this even possible? Aira turned back to look at him, her clear blue eyes filled with surprise. You can feel me? She asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Kian nodded, trying to convince himself that this was just a coincidence. But the sensation he was experiencing made it impossible to explain. Yes, Aira, this feeling, it's like I'm living in your emotions. It's not just the embarrassment, but also your thoughts, your feelings. I can feel every detail. Aira suddenly stopped, her gaze turning to one of concern. So we've created some kind of connection? Could it be that this device not only changed our bodies, but also altered our brains? Kian looked at the device in his hand, completely confused by what was happening. He sighed, trying to focus. I don't know anymore, but we have to do something, Aira. We can't just leave it like this. Aira looked at him, then at her own body. Right? I can't work with the Galactic Council like this, she said, her voice growing firmer. So what do we do to fix it? Kian looked at Aira again, realizing that the strange connection between them was becoming something they couldn't ignore. We'll figure out how to fix it together, but first, we need to understand how this device works. Kian stood beside Aira, both of them unsure of what to do about the strange situation unfolding around them. The confusion still lingered in the air of the lab, but now, something else was starting to form between them, a connection that couldn't be denied. The physical changes the device caused affected not just Aira, but also made both of them feel each other's emotions, something they had never prepared for. Aira looked down at her body, feeling the changes, but also something deeper, a strange link between her and Kian. Unfamiliar emotions began to rise within her, and she couldn't help but notice that she was feeling Kian's worries and confusion. Kian, she breathed out, her gaze distant. I can feel what you're thinking. This is really strange. Kian looked at Aira, unable to hide the surprise and a bit of concern in his eyes. He tried to make sense of the feeling flowing through him, a sensation he had never experienced before. I feel the same, Aira, he said, his voice trembling slightly. This feeling, I can't explain it. Whatever you're feeling, I'm feeling it too. This is unlike anything I've ever gone through. Aira felt a new kind of tension rising within her. Her relationship with Kian was no longer just a professional collaboration. She began to sense the strange attraction Kian brought, even though she tried to keep everything strictly business. But this connection, this shift in their emotions and thoughts, had overwhelmed all restraint. "What do we do now?" Aira asked, her voice slightly weary, as though facing a situation too complex. "This feeling between us, it can't just be a coincidence. I can't continue working like this when everything feels so unfamiliar." Kian stood still, his gaze avoiding hers, as if trying to escape from these unexpected emotions. He felt a strong pull, a sense of familiarity he couldn't explain. "I don't know, Aira. I can't stop it. This feeling, it makes me feel closer to you than I ever have. But at the same time, I know we need to maintain professionalism." Aira turned to look at him, her eyes full of confusion. She couldn't deny this feeling, the irresistible pull she sensed from him. "So, how do we keep our distance?" she asked, her lips tightly pressed together. "This relationship, if it continues like this, we won't be able to maintain professionalism." Kian took a deep breath, his hands clenching into fists. He knew they couldn't continue like this forever. "I don't want this to affect our work," he said, his voice dropping. "But maybe we need to accept that things can't go back to how they were." They both stood quietly, the silence palpable, but the rising tension between them was undeniable. The emotions they had never felt before suddenly became clear and intense. They realized that this relationship wasn't just about work. It had crossed the boundaries they once set. Aira couldn't take her eyes off Kian. She felt a powerful and indescribable connection, but also anxiety about what would come next. "Kian, I can't deny this feeling," she admitted, her voice softening. "It feels so strange, but also, it's hard to stop." Kian looked at her, his heart racing, not because of the tension in the situation, but because of the intense emotions he couldn't explain. "I know, Aira. I feel the same way, and that makes me not know what to do anymore." A moment of silence stretched between them. They didn't need to say anything more, but the mixed emotions in each of them seemed to speak louder than words. They both realized that they couldn't go back, that this connection had become a part of them, whether they wanted it to or not. And despite having no plan or preparation, they couldn't avoid the development of this relationship. Kian and Aira stood beside each other, the soft glow from the holographic screens reflecting on their faces, creating an atmosphere that was tense yet full of determination. They couldn't deny that the connection between them, though accidental, had begun to grow stronger than ever. The unwanted emotions, the thoughts they had never shared before, now poured into their minds. However, they knew they couldn't let these feelings dictate their work. If they did, they wouldn't be able to resolve the issue at hand. Aira turned to look at Kian, her eyes still reflecting confusion. She sighed deeply before speaking. "Kian, I think we need to separate our emotions from the work. If we don't, we won't be able to fix this device." Her voice was a bit tense, but also filled with resolve. She didn't want their relationship to complicate the situation any further. Kian nodded, but deep down, he couldn't stop thinking about the strange connection. He looked at Aira, noticing the worry in her eyes, and couldn't deny that he, too, was feeling deep emotions from her. "I understand, Aira," he replied, his voice trembling slightly, "but I can't stop feeling what you're going through. This emotion, it's hard to control." Although both of them knew they needed to focus on their work, the atmosphere between them was far too heavy. The attraction between them became more obvious each time they touched the device, feeling each other's movements, each emotion. Despite trying to maintain professionalism, they couldn't help but be drawn into each other's feelings. It seems this device not only changes the body, but also affects us at the cellular level, Aira said as she studied the readings on the screen, her voice focused. "We need to understand its mechanism, or it will be hard to restore it to its original state." Kian moved closer, his eyes fixed on the device. The screen displayed strange symbols that neither he nor Aira could fully comprehend. He pressed a few buttons, but nothing happened. "Maybe we haven't tried the right way," he said, his voice tinged with disappointment. Aira pointed to a symbol on the screen. "This button," she said, "could be the reversal function. I think we've missed an important step." Kian followed her finger, then looked back at the device, a feeling of embarrassment rising in him as he realized the closeness between them. But he pushed those thoughts aside, determined to focus on the task at hand. We need to try a few more functions. If you're right, we might be able to fix this." They both focused on the device, working together to test and find a way to fix the malfunction. Every time they exchanged ideas, an increasingly strong feeling crept into their minds. Kian felt Aira's persistence and determination in every word she spoke, while Aira couldn't help but notice Kian's thoughts, his focus shifting toward her more than ever. This inexplicable connection made them feel closer, but also created a palpable tension. Kian stood up and walked toward the screen, and Aira stood beside him, closer than ever before. That closeness once again made them feel as if they couldn't escape this connection. "We have to do this right," Kian said, trying not to let his emotions interfere with the work. "We can't let this connection complicate things further." Aira turned to look at Kian, her eyes filled with confusion, but also softening with vulnerability. I can't deny it anymore, Kian," she admitted, her voice gentle but tinged with fatigue. "This feeling, it makes me feel like I'm facing something bigger, not just work anymore." Kian looked at Aira, and a strange sensation rose within him. He knew he couldn't keep going like this forever. "I feel the same," he said. "But we have to work together to fix this device. If we don't, things will only get more complicated." They both turned back to focus on the device, their concentration now stronger than ever. But in that silence, there was an undeniable pull between them. Their relationship was no longer just about work. It had begun to cross the boundaries they once set. After hours of intense research, Aira and Kian finally understood the device's operating principles. Initially, they thought it was simply a tool for altering cellular structures. But the more they studied, the more they realized that this device could have far deeper implications, not only changing physical form, but also intervening in neural connections at the quantum level. This technology surpassed the capabilities of any civilization they had ever encountered. "We're not just fixing a device," Aira said, looking at the data on the screen, her voice lowering. "We're facing a technology that could change how species understand and communicate with one another. If we can reverse the effects on the body, we'll still have to deal with the fact that this connection could persist, and it could change our relationship." Kian looked at Aira, sensing the worry in her voice. Although they had found a way to restore Aira's original physical state, the strange neural link between them, a phenomenon they hadn't been able to explain at first, wasn't something that could be easily undone. This feeling wasn't just a side effect of the device. It had also created a powerful sense of closeness they had never experienced before. "We can restore your body, Aira," Kian said, but his voice faltered. "However, erasing this connection, it's not simple. This sensation doesn't just affect us physically, it's embedded deep within our minds. I don't think we can just press a button and undo everything that's been connected." Aira stood still, looking at Kian, recognizing the tension in his eyes. "This feeling, Kian," she said softly, "it's not just changing me, it's changing the way I see everything around me. I can't deny that. Even if we can temporarily reverse this effect, we'd lose a rare opportunity to change how civilizations communicate and understand each other." Kian couldn't help but reflect on what Aira said. In the quiet moments, he felt the tension, the conflict between preserving this connection to explore new opportunities and facing the potential risks it could bring. If we keep this connection, the Galactic Council won't easily accept it. They could see it as a threat, a violation of interspecies principles. We would have to explain everything, and could that affect our careers? Aira felt a heavy weight in her chest, but she couldn't deny that this connection, despite its risks, was also a valuable opportunity. But if we erase it, we'll never know what could happen if we let this technology evolve. This feeling, Kian, could change the way species interact in the universe. It's an opportunity for us to overcome barriers and perhaps bring benefits to all civilizations. Kian stood up, feeling the tension rising within him. The connection between him and Aira was no longer just about work. "You're right, Aira. We can't let fear control us. But do we have the strength to face the unpredictable consequences if we decide to keep this connection?" They stood silently for a moment, and the silence between them felt like an empty space. They realized this wasn't just a decision about their work, but a profound change in the relationship between species. This connection wasn't just a coincidence, it was a tremendous opportunity to explore and develop relationships between civilizations, both human and alien. "We've come too far to stop now," Ira finally spoke, her eyes brightening with a hint of determination. "We can't keep living in fear of the unknown. We have to face it, no matter how difficult it may be." Kian nodded, feeling a newfound strength rise within him. "I agree, Ira. No matter the challenges ahead, I'll stand by you. If we can bring about change for the future, for all civilizations in the universe, then this is an opportunity we can't pass up." Ira smiled softly, a smile no longer tinged with worry, but filled with trust in their decision. "Then we'll continue, Kian. We'll solve this problem together, not just for our work, but for a better future." They both turned back to look at the device, realizing that they could never go back to the way things were. This connection had changed them, and although it might bring danger, it also opened the door to a new world, one they would never forget. After everything they had been through, from the initial accident to understanding how the device worked, Kian and Aira now not only understood each other better, but also felt the deep changes within themselves. The connection between them was no longer an accident, but an integral part of their journey. Though life would continue to be challenging, they had learned an important lesson about friendship, collaboration, and empathy. Kian stood next to Aira, the light from the holographic screens dancing across their faces, creating an atmosphere that was both tense and warm. The neural connection still lingered between them, like an electric current running through their bodies, allowing them to feel each other's thoughts and emotions. However, this connection no longer made them anxious or confused. They had come to understand that this was the opportunity to create profound change between species, an opportunity to truly understand and respect one another. Ira turned to look at Kian, her eyes no longer filled with worry as before. "We've been through so many challenges, Kian, but perhaps this is the greatest lesson of my life. This connection doesn't just change me, it changes the way I see the world around me. I realize now that empathy is not just a theoretical concept, it really can create change." Kian smiled, his gaze filled with resolve and understanding. "I feel the same way. We haven't just fixed a device, we've built a bridge between civilizations, something I never imagined before. Empathy isn't a weakness, it's the strength that helps us overcome every challenge. And if we can do this, I believe the future will be different." Ira nodded, feeling the warmth in Kian's words. "We can't let the differences between species or the rules of civilization stand in the way of this relationship. Yes, there will be challenges ahead and we will face unexpected difficulties, but I believe this relationship is the solid foundation upon which we can build a world where cooperation and understanding truly exist." They looked at each other for a long time, no words needed, for they both understood that whatever decision they made, it would be one born of trust, a choice to continue down the path full of challenges ahead. Kian no longer feared or worried about the unknown. He was ready to face whatever difficulties came his way, alongside Aira. "We won't let fear or rigid rules stop us, will we?" Kian asked, his voice firm. Aira smiled, and this time her smile was no longer hesitant, but filled with confidence in the path they had chosen. "That's right, Kian. No matter how difficult the road ahead may be, I'll always stand by you. Together, we'll create change." With renewed determination, they turned away and walked out of the laboratory. No more fear or doubt, only faith in the connection they had built, not just between themselves, but between civilizations. Each step they took was a step toward a brighter future, where differences were not barriers, but opportunities for discovery and cooperation. The journey was far from over, and although they didn't know what would happen next, Kian and Aira both understood that empathy and the connection between species would be the key to the future, not just for them, but for all those willing to transcend differences to build a better world.